Well, good afternoon, and welcome to our Gazelle Systems webcast, where we'll discuss and learn a mid-year checklist to help you stay on track and finish the year strong. We have lots more attendees coming into the webcast, so as they come in, I wanted to start by asking a few poll questions just so that Patrick and I can get to know you as an audience better. So if you wouldn't mind, just answer a couple of the poll questions for me as we're waiting for more attendees to come in. So the first question we have for you as we get started is, do you have a Rockefeller Habit one-page strategic plan? So if you could just take a few seconds to answer this, yes or no, and we'll share the results with the group. So far, overwhelmingly yes. Do you have a Rockefeller Habits one-page strategic plan? So just simply click yes or no on the screen if you would. We'll have a few more seconds to let some folks answer that. Okay, very nice. So yeah, 64% have a Rockefeller Habits one-page strategic plan. Excellent. Another question for you is, do you have quarterly planning sessions with your executive team? Give us some feedback on that. Do you have quarterly planning sessions with your executive team? So far, overwhelmingly yes, about 80% yes on this. So just simply click the screen and let us know that. Do you have quarterly planning sessions with your executive team? Okay. So 80% yes there. Next question is, do you have quarterly planning sessions with your departments? So you have a quarterly planning session with the executive team. Do you have planning sessions within your departments? This one's more 50-50. Actually, a few more saying no at this point. So you do plan with the executive team, but not necessarily with departments. Okay, that's helpful. All right. And then just an execution question. Do you have weekly meetings with your executive team? You have weekly meetings with your executive team to review plan execution. Okay, 80% yes. So it looks like those that do have quarterly planning are having weekly meetings. Excellent. And one final question is, do you have those weekly meetings in your departments? Do your departments have weekly meetings to review plan execution? Okay, so far about 50-50 here. Excellent. Let's give a few more seconds to answer that. Okay, about 50-50. All right, thanks so much. Well, it looks like we've got most of our attendees are online at this point, and we want to get the webinar started. My name is Ryan Walcott, and I'm your host for today's webcast. But before I introduce our speaker, I have a few housekeeping items to cover with you all. First of all, how's the audio? Can everyone hear me well? Your call is muted for the webcast today due to a large number of attendees. So please ask questions using the question control panel in the GoToWebinar control panel. And it'd be great if you could just let me know by just posting a question there, if my audio is good, if you can hear me okay. Okay, thank you. A couple of you are saying, yeah, sounds good. All right, thank you. Very helpful. All right, looks like everyone can hear me. And so please post questions there throughout the webinar using your control panel. And that's mainly the main function you'll need to know with your control panel today. And we want this to be a working session for you today. So please don't be shy. Patrick loves questions, so use the control panel to send us any questions you have throughout the webcast. You don't have to just wait for the question slide. Just go ahead and send your questions in, and we'll want to make this an interactive webcast today. This webcast is being recorded, and you'll receive a link to the recording when it's available for use after the webcast. And let me introduce our speaker today. He's a good friend of mine, Patrick Tian, CEO of Gazelle Systems, creator of the Rhythm software, and author of Execute Without Drama. Patrick is an award-winning international speaker and a serial entrepreneur who has started and exited several multi-million-dollar companies. His prior company was 151 on the Inc. 500 list, and he's a winner of the North Carolina Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. On our webcast today, Patrick's going to walk you through a mid-year checklist to stay on track to finish the year strong. Patrick, it's great to have you here with us today.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. It's great to be here.
So without further, go ahead, Patrick.
Well, I jumped the gun on you, didn't I, buddy?
That's all right. Go ahead.
Okay, so what we're here to talk about today is to do like a quick mid-year checklist to make sure that you execute well for the rest of the year. And as Ryan said earlier, this is a working session for you. It's not for me. So please, please chat in your questions, and I'd love this to be as much for you as possible. So it's the middle of the year, and you are running hard and fast. And I'm no different from you. I'm running hard and fast too. And so the question is, how do you make decisions faster and better so that you finish strong for 2011? You know, how do you make the second half of 2011 even better than the first half, and how do you finish strong? And so, you know, if you are on target for the end of the year to receive presents at the end of the year, that's great, right? So hopefully we finish strong at the end of the year, and we're filled with presents of achieving our goals and celebrations and all that kind of good stuff. However, for some of us, if we're not on target, we might get lumps of coal instead. So my goal today is for you guys to work with you all today to help you achieve the presents picture versus the goals picture. The agenda for today, I got 4 things I want to share with you. You know, now's the time for us to stop, to take a look at what we're doing, and then to make the necessary adjustments before it's too late. We still have half a year. So my agenda are these 4 things. I'm going to just share 4 things with you. There's nothing worse than working hard and running up to the wrong target. So if you're running up to the wrong target for the end of the year, you want to stop right now and make those adjustments. And then, you know, if you're running up to the right target, you know, what adjustments do you need to make to achieve that while you still have time? Do you also have any KPIs that are guiding you versus just measuring what you have achieved? We call those leading indicators, and I'll share a little bit about that. And finally, we still live in a people-to-people world. So we can have the best plans, but if our people aren't comfortable executing them or aren't doing a great job executing them, we won't have success. And so those are the 4 key things I just would like to share with you today. So let's get going. The first one is, are you looking at the right target? And so, you know, what was the target again? I want you guys to think about, what are you supposed to achieve by the end of the year? What does the success picture look like for you? And I kind of call it a destination postcard. Because sometimes we're so busy, we can't see the forest from the trees. So a very simple tool I'm going to share with you is to create a destination postcard for yourself and to kind of test whether or not you're on target. So before we do that, I want to share with you a very quick story about the power of destination postcards. If you haven't read the book Switch yet by Chip and Dan Heath, you should. It's kind of cool. There's a quick story in there about a teacher, Crystal Jones, who joined Teach for America in 2003. So she's teaching 1st grade in Atlanta, Georgia. And in this school, there's no kindergarten. So for many people, for many of the kids, Crystal is their first teacher. The problem is that she inherited a class where the skill gaps were daunting. The skill gaps between all the children were very daunting. Some couldn't even hold pencils. The basic behavior wasn't quite right for schooling yet. And nobody was where they needed to be for 1st grade. So the solution she created was, she said, well, first let me create a vivid image of success that comes from the near-term future for them. We'll call it a destination postcard. And so the destination postcard she created for the children was that by the end of the school year, you guys are going to be like 3rd graders. Now, 3rd graders is a beautiful image for a 1st grader because those kids are bigger, stronger, faster. It's also a measurable goal, so she chose that goal very carefully. because she knew the standards for what a third grader has to achieve in Georgia. So she can actually say, have you or have you not achieved that? So what happened in this school, of course, with all her hard work, but with that visual image of that goal, by springtime, the kids were scoring in the second grade level for reading. So she actually threw a graduation ceremony party, and she started calling them second graders. And so they started walking around proudly in the school, calling themselves second graders. And by the end of the school year, more than 90% of the children had achieved reading at or above the third grade level. That's really cool. So my question for you is, what's your destination postcard? All right? What's your destination postcard that can give your team that vivid image of success? So if you have a clear image of success for the year, that's great. Then don't worry about this part. Okay? You're doing fine. But if you don't, then here's a very simple process. I kind of call this my time machine process. You kind of imagine the time machine, put yourself into it, zip out to December 31st, 2001. When you pop out the time machine, you need to look around and what does success look like? You've achieved your goals. You've got your presents for Christmas. And what does success look like? You kind of bask in that nice emotional feeling. And then you ask yourself, okay, what are 3 things that have to happen for us to actually make that success picture come to reality? Okay? And then you take a look at what are those 3 things and how does that compare to what you actually have in your list today of priorities. So have a strong picture of your destination. That's the first thing I want to share with you. The second thing is, now that you have that strong sense of what the year should look like, do you need to make any adjustments? And by the way, even a good working plan can use adjustments to make it stronger. You know, in the story I just shared with you, Crystal Jones threw a graduation party and called the kids second graders in springtime, right? So that's kind of like an adjustment, right? She kind of made an adjustment to the plan, a positive adjustment to continue with the momentum that she had with the children. So to make your adjustments, a tool that I like to share with you is what we call the start-stop key. And by the way, after the webcast is over, we will actually post onto our resource, onto the webcast page where you registered, a couple of these tools I'm sharing with you. One is this particular tool, the start-stop key. It will be posted on there for you to download if you need one. But it's really simple to do. You can pull out a piece of paper, actually do it right now. And there's 3 things we're focused on. The starts are things that you need to start doing now. The stops are things that aren't working, that you already spent half a year on, that's really wasting your time. If you can kill these time wasters and de-hassle yourself, you can take that energy and apply it to areas where you have some bright spots, some things which are working. In fact, you can apply it to the third area of the keeps. What's working? What can you do to accelerate? So I usually get a question on how do we actually do this as a team. Here's what I suggest that you do as a team. First, give them a simple form, and you can use the one that I have that you can download from our website. Ask them to fill it out. Ask them to take no more than 30 minutes to complete it. Because I want you guys to do the top of mind stuff, the stuff that comes immediately to your brain. If you spend a couple of hours on it, you're thinking too hard. So ask for the top 3 from each category. 3 starts, 3 stops, 3 keeps. I wouldn't limit them though. I would ask them to think of the top 3, but some people will have more, and that's okay. Then I'll review it as a team together. And when you review it as a team, I'll ask each person to pick the top 2 from the entire list. All right? Not the top 2 from each of the categories, but the top 2 from the entire list. I will then take the top 2, write up on a tear sheet or a whiteboard, get it up on the wall for everyone to see, so that everyone feels that they're contributing to the ideas here. And then I'll give everybody 3 votes, you know, and then when you and vote for the best 3 ideas that they see up there, and then pick based on the number of votes that you have. And that way everyone feels like they contributed, and usually using the wisdom of the crowd, or rather the wisdom of the team, the best stuff rises to the top as well. So that's a simple process to do a start-stop keep. And when you do the start-stop keep, you want to do it against the destination postcard, right? In other words, how am I doing against achieving that goal? What do I have to do to adjust? A quick tip here. Focus on the stops, not start. Usually when I do this exercise with my clients, we end up with lots of starts and a few keeps and hardly any stops. And I know that many of you who've heard me speak before, I like to say, nobody came into my class or my webcast saying, Patrick, I've got nothing to do. please give me stuff to do. So all of us have stuff to do already, and we don't need more stuff to do. So the challenge here is not to pile on more starts and more priorities. The challenge here, actually, it's harder to think of the stops. So what I really want you guys to think about is to simplify. How do you reduce and simplify your path? How do you actually, the irony here is if you can do less priorities, you have a higher probability of getting them done and a higher probability of achieving your goals. So you really want to slow down, have some good think time and talk time, and trim. You really want to trim your priorities rather than add to it. And I'll say this again, it's really hard to do. Usually my clients would have a lot of starts, and I would stop them and say, okay, let's not do more things. Let's focus on what we can actually cut down. So, Jim Collins says that being able to say no to the wrong things to do is the best testimony or the best test to prove that you have a strategy. So, learn to do more stops versus than stops. Okay, so that's the first section where I covered 2 items, and I'd love you guys to see if you have any questions so far. And while you're doing that, I'd like you guys to take 30 seconds and think about your destination postcard, or think about the start, stop, keep that I just shared with you. And then Ryan, it's good for us to then see if there are any questions for me while I take a pause here.
Sure. So if you have any questions, now would be a good time to put them into the question section of the control panel. And just send those in to us. Okay, so here's a question from Stuart, Patrick. The question is, how do you bring the destination postcard to life for the whole organization?
Okay, so how do you bring the destination postcard to life for the whole organization? That's a good question. You think of the destination postcard as a big theme for the company. So after you've created your destination postcard, I would go ahead and begin sharing with the rest of the company. You could have a company meeting. And by the way, meeting could be physical, could be virtual, could be WebEx, could be kind of like this, where you kind of share the destination postcard with the whole company and get people excited about it. You've got to get the destination postcard connected emotionally as well as analytically. And so, back to the story I shared with you guys about the kids, right? The idea of being a 3rd grader was very, very emotionally compelling. So consider having a mid-year company meeting where you can announce and share the destination postcard and get people jazzed about, running fast towards the right target to open presents at the end of the year.
Okay, I got one more question for you. I have so much on my plate. How do I stop doing something as you suggested?
Oh, so that's a great question, and unfortunately there is no magic bullet here. So I don't have a magic bullet for the person who asked this question. But you need a little ice in your veins, you need to consider a few things. One, the priorities that you actually have today, do they contribute directly to my plan happening? That's one question you should ask yourself. The other one is you should ask yourself, well, will anything really bad happen if I stop doing this? I know it sounds kind of weird, but lots of times we come up with things to do that have no real impact. And one simple test is, is there anything bad that's going to happen if I just don't do it? And then the third way I look at this is I call it my $100 exercise, right? If you have $100, where would you, and you could put your $100 to each of these priorities. Where would you put that $100? And any of the priorities you have that you've allocated less than $20 of that 100 is probably not that important. When push comes to shove, you might consider stopping those and putting more of your energy towards the more important ones where you put 40, 50 bucks to. Okay, I'm going to move on to the third item if there are no other questions. And if there are, please chat them in and I can answer them anyway. So
there's one more, Patrick. There's one more if you got a second here. So this one is a question. I'm in the mid-rank in the organization and feel certain things should stop. But what if my leader wants them to continue? How do I convince them?
So I heard you correctly. The question is from someone who is a middle manager that says, I've got some things that need to stop. how do I convince my senior manager that that has to stop? Did I hear that correctly, Ryan?
That's correct.
Okay, so a couple of things. You know, all senior managers have goals, and if the goal that you want to stop conflicts with the goal that the person needs to achieve, that's not going to happen, right? In other words, if I need to get something done and I'm your senior manager and your priority you would like to stop actually helps me get my thing done, I'm not going to let you stop. So conversely, check that priority of yours. If it actually does not help me get my goals done, you have a higher probability of saying, Patrick, this particular priority I'm on, I don't think it contributes to the company's direct success and even your direct success right now, Patrick. If I stop this one, I can then work on this other item that contributes directly to a priority that you need done as well. So I think the key word here I'll share with you is alignment. If you can show how the priority you're working on is not aligned to your manager's priority, he or she will be probably pretty happy for you to stop that. Conversely, show me something you're doing that will align towards my priority, towards the company being successful as well, and I'll be probably pretty happy for you to switch your energy to that item. Okay, I hope that was useful. The third item here is KPIs. How do you use key performance indicators? In case people are wondering what KPI stands for, it's key performance indicators. How do we use KPIs to make what I call just-in-time adjustments? So, you know, you guys have all heard about just-in-time manufacturing, just-in-time inventory. Likewise, lots of times, some people come up with adjustments when they're too late or adjustments when they're too early. How do we actually have adjustments which are just-in-time? So KPIs, the two types of KPIs, those are the ones that measure what you've already achieved, and those are good. But the ones that I want to talk about today are leading indicators. Leading indicators are like headlights. Kind of gives you the headlights to view the road in front of you on a dark night. And leading indicators need to guide you versus merely measuring what has already happened. So if you want to test your KPIs or your metrics and you want to say, okay, Patrick, I've got a bunch of KPIs already. How do I know if they're leading or if they're just measuring? So the acid test is, does it guide your actions towards future decisions, or is it measuring something that has already happened? For example, your profit, your EBITDA, your gross margins, your revenues for the year, your revenue per head, those are not leading indicators. Those are all things that measure what you've achieved, and those are good. Don't stop doing those, okay? But leading indicators are things that will guide you versus things that have already happened. So it's hard to get your leading indicator. To do leading indicators, and by the way, it's plural. It's not just a single leading indicator, but there are usually multiple leading indicators that you can use for your business. A couple of things about them. It's like peeling back an onion. You know, you've got to really think about your desired outcome and what causes that outcome. So your leading indicator is about trying to figure out the levers that you can push on that will cause your outcome versus the outcome itself. There's no easy way to do this, by the way. The only way to do this is to slow down, take a few deep breaths, get your team to just calm down and spend more time thinking and have a bit of patience. So I'm going to show you an example of how to get this done. Okay? So the first step is, let's say we had a desired outcome. And for this exercise, let's just say that we need to have X dollars in sales to achieve our plan. And so this is our desired outcome, guys. We want to achieve, you know, $10 million in sales or whatever to achieve our plan. So the first question is, how do we get this 10 million or this X dollars? Okay, in this example, we need to close 20 more deals to achieve our plan. Great, so then you keep asking questions. And I found that at least 4 to 5 questions help you get there. 1 or 2 questions, you're just scratching the surface. 4 to 5 questions get you deeper, peeling back that onion. So how do I close 20 more deals to achieve our plan in 2011? Well, we actually close 20% of what I call our strong leads, however you define strong leads. So if we close 20%, then we need 100 strong leads. What do we have to do to get 100 strong leads? Well, we need at least qualified leads, 5 of them, for every one that we consider a strong lead. So that's 500 qualified leads. And then let's be really clear, though, on what we call a qualified lead. It's a prospect who has accepted a meeting and also has money. And so therefore, based on that, we should focus on getting 500 qualified leads. So in this case, your qualified leads is a leading indicator. In other words, if you don't get these 500 qualified leads, you have a very low probability of closing those 20 deals. So you can see how we have to kind of peel back the onion and start with our desired outcome and step back in time, all right, to figure out what are the things that have to happen before that can happen. And so a leading indicator is about the things that have to happen before your outcome can happen. And the reason why we care about that is if the things that were supposed to happen, further upstream didn't happen, you need to make your adjustments there before you arrive at the outcome and realize that you failed. So this is a good example of leading indicator. And then to create, and then you can do this thing called a daily question. All right. Now that you know that you need 500 qualified leads, you could ask yourself a question every day, which is, what am I doing today to help get 500 qualified leads? So this is how you can use a KPI to kind of guide some of your actions. And then last but not least, don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. What I mean by getting stuck is, oftentimes in weekly meetings, you may find that you have a priority or something like that that is stuck, that hasn't moved. And you haven't shared that with anybody. So you're stuck for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Now a quarter is 13 weeks. So every quarter you have is a 13-week race. And if you get stuck for 1 or 2 weeks, you just missed 2 weeks of possible ways to get yourself moving forward. So every week, I want you to have the courage to discuss your stucks and adjust and change your plan weekly. So for example, let's say you're trying to go after these 500 qualified leads, and after the first couple of weeks, you're not really getting there. Instead of fighting it, struggling on your own, and call it stuck, bring it to your team in a weekly meeting and say, hey guys, guess what? We need these 500 qualified leads. Oh my goodness, we're just not getting there. I need some ideas, guys. Help me get unstuck so that I can change my actions so I can achieve my goal. Okay, we have a few, I know we have a number of clients in the room that are using Rhythm. And so for our Rhythm clients, one other tip for you, I would suggest that you create these KPIs, and I call this your adjustment dashboard. So I would suggest that you work with your execution coach and come up with your adjustment dashboard, and then make sure you discuss this weekly in your weekly meeting. By the way, with any dashboard you come up with, as you guys already know, you need to make sure you have good red, yellow, green success criteria. I found, by the way, that the red, yellow, green success criteria is probably all the harder things to get done, but probably the only thing that will help you not get embroiled in emotional discussions about priorities and KPIs. So you just take this one simple example. Let's say this customer has an adjustment that they want to make sure that they really manage their client cancellation rate. And the red, yellow, green here would be, we want the adjustment rate, the cancellation rate to be less than 8%. Less than 5% is super green, that's the stretch goal. And anything greater than 20% is unacceptable and is failure. So for those in the room who are our Rhythm clients, please, your execution coaches have been briefed on this already. They can kind of help you work on this for your Q3 clients. Okay. Once you've got your KPI, I already demonstrated the idea of using a daily question. And I want to show you that how the right question to ask every day is amazing. So this is a picture of a crew team, right? And I love crew teams because I think that crew teams are a beautiful picture of alignment. Because the winning crew team is typically not the strongest one, but the one that pulls in the best unison. And that, in the business term, would be alignment, right? So in the sports term, it's pulling in the right unison. And so every crew team has a coxswain that calls for this alignment with every single pool. And that's kind of what the daily question is like. It's like having a coxswain, letting everyone remember, what they need to get aligned to every single day. So I want to give you a couple more examples of this daily question. I'm going to give you a couple of real examples without sharing with you the client names. But we have a client, for example, who has a concept of monthly qualified leads. And a monthly qualified lead is very well defined for them. And they figured out that they needed a certain number of monthly qualified leads every single month in order to achieve their goals. And so the question they asked themselves was, okay, how do we get 100 monthly qualified leads every single month? And the daily question for that quarter was, what am I doing today to get more MQLs? So it's very simple. What am I doing today to get more MQLs? And you may not do something every single day to get more MQLs, but you want to remember every single day that this quarter, that's critical for your success. So what I found is that you're not going to get an idea every single day. In fact, if you get an idea every single day from your team, you won't be able to implement. That's just too many ideas. But what I found is the power of a daily question like that is that, every once in a while somebody will pop up and say, hey, when I was thinking about what I can do today to get more MQLs, this idea popped in my head. I want to share with the team. And then that leads to something that we actually do that actually gives us the success. So I always ask people too, how do you want just the brains on your executive team thinking, or do you want to harness all the brains in your company, right? And so the companies today that are going to win are the ones that can actually harness the most brains and get them focused on a few of the right problems. So if you use a daily question like that, you can harness all the brains in your company, every single person, to think about MQLs. Let me give you another one. Let's say this company, we had a software client that had a project that was critical for delivery, major customer. And they said that if they did not deliver the project on time for that quarter, it would really be a problem. And so very simply, the daily question was, what can I do today to move Project X forward? Or what can I do to move Project X forward today? And by the way, this is a daily question. And some people say to me, gee, Patrick, that sounds like something out of the software department, the R&D development team. So what has sales and marketing going to do with that? This ended up being the daily question for everyone on the team, because you'd be surprised how sometimes someone in sales and marketing can come up with an idea that helps move the project forward. And again, we want to harness all the brains on this item. The other thing that happens with smart people is that smart people running companies, very easy for us to get siloed. Very easy for us to go, hey, you R&D guys, do your R&D thing. The sales and marketing guys, go do your sales and marketing thing. And without realizing it, silos get created. A daily question like that cuts across the entire company will help break down those silos, just like using a theme would. So in this particular case, when they used this question about how to move Project X forward every day, they had some amazing ideas that came out of the sales team that helped them actually deliver this on time. So think of the daily question as cutting across the entire company, even if it does sound department-centric. Don't make it department-centric. Okay. So now it's a good time for me to see if there are any questions on the third section of this about using KPIs and the daily question to guide you. And while we're taking questions, I'd like you guys to take 30 seconds and work on a few things. One, work on your daily question if you have a good theme for your company and you just need to tweak it a little bit. Think about what a good daily question is. Secondly, if you don't have any leading indicators, then think about what are 1 or 2 KPIs that can guide you. And so while we're doing this, Ryan, it'd be good to see if we have any questions as well.
Okay. Here's a question from Mike. His question is there a tie between the daily question and the one-page plan format?
Is there a tie between the daily question and one-page plan format? I would do this. The short answer to the question is, in the one-page plan format, we have themes, which is in column 6. I usually tie the theme and the daily question very similarly. In other words, if the theme is about something, like in the case where that customer, actually that theme was about delivering that project on time, right? In the previous example, critical project delivery, the theme in this particular case was about delivering this project on time. So the daily question was actually tied to their theme. And so what they did was they took that theme and they made it into a daily question so that they could actually make the theme come alive every single day. That's a great question.
Mm-hmm. Here's another question. We do a daily huddle and we use daily metrics. How is the daily question different than the daily huddle metrics and questions that we discussed?
Okay, so if you have a daily huddle, and if you don't, please do it. And all the companies who've done daily huddles can testify that it really helps them operationally very strongly. So if you're doing a daily huddle and you have a daily metric, that tends to be more of an operational metric, and that's good. That's good. You want to keep doing that. So the daily question is tied much more to your overall goal in your theme for the quarter.
And one more question. Do you know of a tool to collect and assess the responses for daily questions?
Say it again, Ryan, a tool for what?
Do you know of a tool, or is there a tool to help you collect and assess the responses for the daily question?
The way I would assess the responses, well, two things. First, I'm really looking more at making sure that that idea is in the minds of people, right? So the best way to assess really is in your weekly meeting, people will come up with ideas from the week, and they'll say, hey, you know, we thought about this question, etc. And here's a couple of things we're thinking of doing this week. So I think talking about things that come up in your weekly meeting and how some of these ideas came from the daily question will be extremely helpful. The other thing you could do for our rhythm clients is in your adjustment dashboard, you could track also the notes there, you know, what are some of the things that happen from the daily question that help us make those adjustments.
Again, I have one more from Lynn. What do you do when there's no responses to your daily question?
Oh, that's a good question. So again, the daily question, I'm not looking for a response as much, and there could be a couple of reasons why there are no responses. One reason could be that it's a new thing, and you know how new things are. You know, people are what's the word, skeptical. You know, when I go to workshops and I come home, sometimes my team would say, well, you know, Patrick came out with the news management thing, and we just like ignore it for a couple of weeks. You know, this too shall pass, and we won't have to do it. So sometimes it could be that, you know, people are skeptical. They go, yeah, this is a new thing that you're doing. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't really care. I'll keep at it. And after a while, you know, people will begin to see that you're serious about it and will begin taking it seriously. So to me, there's two measurements. You know, how long does it take for the team to take it seriously? And during that time, I really don't expect any input from them. Now, once the team takes it seriously, the input that comes from because of daily question is going to be sporadic. Again, it's not going to be every day that someone comes up with an idea. But what should happen is it should influence not just your huddle, but it should influence your discussions. So what I've seen happen with teams is that they'll use the daily question in a huddle, yes, but they'll also use it when they're having the meetings. And they'll say, hey, you know, we're doing this meeting to do this. And by the way, why is this meeting even important? I mean, how does it help us, you know, deliver Project X on time, right? So that's kind of what happens. And then I think if you do that, you will get some input from the daily question. Okay, I'm going to move to the last section, which is about people. And so the thought I wanted to share with you is, you know, what if you could actually get twice productivity out of your people, right? So I kind of call this a 2x people plan. You know, what can we do to coach our teams to get them to be more productive? So by the way, here's why you guys are being paid the big bucks. You know, the managers, the senior leaders in the room with me today, you guys are being paid the big bucks because you're supposed to make your people stronger, more effective. And so how do you coach them, right? So when I look at this people plan, it's really more about not so much about my people, but more about myself as an individual leader in this room. What am I doing to help my team succeed? I had the pleasure of hosting Liz Wiseman recently in Taipan in Malaysia, actually a month ago. And Taipan is a program in Malaysia where we bring together 15, 16 companies and the executive team for 3 days. And they got a full day with Liz Wiseman. So if you haven't read Liz's book yet, Multipliers, you know, it's still a bestseller on Amazon, and it's a great book. And her thesis is that some leaders will actually get 2 to 3 times more productivity from their people. And she called these multipliers. And these people will when you work with them, you will feel smarter at the end of working with them. And so if you ask yourself, gee, you know, why is it that some of the folks I work with I feel smarter? Well, those are the people that are somehow making you better. And how about folks that I work with and I unfortunately feel dumber? Those folks are not multipliers. So the question I have is, you know, how do you make your people a couple times smarter? So go read this book. But if you haven't read this book, I've got a very simple tool for you to think about and take action. So I call this my 2X people tool. And by the way, you know, I kind of believe in, you know, striving for the stars. If you hit the trees, everything's good. But if you kind of shoot for the trees, hit the dirt, nothing's good. So, you know, I like for us to try and think about how do we get twice the productivity from our people, right? Twice. And if you end up, you know, getting 1.2, 1.5, hey, that's still good. Go celebrate that because it was better than 1.0. So how do you do that? So let me share this simple tool with you. What can I do to help coach my team? And the key word here is coach. It's stuff that I'm going to have to do. So this tool will be available for you after this webinar. And if you go to gazellesystems.com webcast information, this is where you register for the webcast. And under the upcoming webcast, there'll actually be a new link in that section that will allow you to download this tool. It'll definitely be there this afternoon. So I'm going to give you an example of this tool. So let's say I have a controller and her name is Sue. And let's say she's one of my A players and I want to coach her to be better. And by the way, this coaching is not just for your B or C players. In fact, I think too often we make the mistake of thinking that only the C players need to be coached. Absolutely not. You want to coach your best people. So let's just say Sue, my controller, is doing pretty good. I want to give you guys a demo here of how to see this thing being filled out. So the first thing you're going to do in trying to understand her focus is what's the desired outcome. You got to get crystal clear on the desired outcome. Both Sue and myself need to understand and agree on what red, yellow, green is. So for example, cash flow. We want her cash flow done every single Friday. And if she's late by 2 days, that's considered red. I don't have a super green for her on this one. Accounts receivable, we want to make sure that accounts receivable is clean and tight. And so in my case, I'm saying if your accounts receivable is less than 30 days old, that's acceptable, that's green. And anything north of 45 days is unacceptable, is red. And yellow is between red and green. So 31 to 44 days is considered yellow. And if you can figure out a way, by the way, to get all my AR under 15 days, man, that's like super green. That's like A+, right? So the first is make sure that we spend some time discussing performance results outcomes. Because if you and her, if I and Sue, in this example, cannot have the same desired outcome and begin with the end in mind, we have already failed before we've even started. Okay? Then the next thing is, what's her focus? All right, what's her focus? And it's really important in this step 2, to have the person think, right? This is from Sue. This is not from me. It's got to be from the person. They need to think about what they have to do to achieve the desired outcome. So in this case, what Sue says to me is, look, I need my cash flow model weekly, and I really want this ready for the CEO by Thursday, because I know you want it Friday, but for me, I got to get it ready by Thursday. I got to have a monthly close checklist. Checklist has to be done 2 days after the month ends. They'll tighten up all my stuff, and then I need to have some financial analytics done that will give us this monthly financial review and will help me highlight some trends. That's great. That's what she wants to do, okay? And by the way, you should coach them here and work with them. And if they have a blank page, it's okay for you to write down 1 or 2 things to get them going. It's a lot easier to edit than to create. So you can lead, but make sure they finish. Make sure, in this example, Sue is the one that tweaks it and finishes it and says, yes, these are the things I believe I need to do to remain focused, okay? Then the last part, which to me is the most important part, is how your manager can help, right? Here's where we make the biggest impact. And so here's where you ask in step 3 how you can help. And you want to challenge them. You want to say, hey, we'll set some goals which are challenging. What does it take to succeed? Okay? Where are you stuck? What obstacles do you have in your way? How do I help you? Right? And give them some breathing space to think. Silence is okay when you're working with them. And I don't want you to underestimate the power of a smile. So while you're working with Sue, in this case, while I was working with Sue, I'd be smiling. You want to smile because you want them to relax and be in a happy place. You want them to be in a happy place. Think about how you can be a great boss and help them, right? Have you guys ever tried thinking when somebody was looking over your shoulder and they said, hey, Patrick, I want you to get this done. Like, great, I'm going to get it done. Okay, well, what you waiting for? Well, yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah, but what you waiting for? I mean, it's so hard to think when someone's looking over your shoulder. And that's what I mean by don't underestimate the power of you smiling and looking relaxed and allowing them to kind of decompress and think with you. Very, very important here that they share with you what they want help in. This is a key point. This is what I call a minor major. There's a difference between successful coaching and unsuccessful coaching. If you share with them, hey, Sue, here are the 2 things you need to succeed. I'm going to coach you on that. Wow, we already lost the game. You want Sue to say to you, well, Patrick, I need this, I need that. So for example, hey, Patrick, I need to know more about financial analytics. I'm not very good in that area. Is it okay? Can you share with me more about the business, patterns of how our clients are working, why they leave us, why they stay with us? And if you do that, it will allow me to learn more about the business, and I can do a better job with understanding how to approach clients with the AR. Sales forecast. I need to have I'm in accounting. I don't never ever meet the sales team. I need a better idea of what's in, what's out. Can you give me a bit of knowledge on the sales forecast? So again, these are two examples of things that would come from Sue to say, Patrick, this is where I need help in. You'll notice in this sheet that I've grayed out the last two lines of each of these sections. It's because I would encourage you to have only 3. And so we've got 2 more lines in case you need 4 and 5, but less is totally more. And I want you to consider only having 3 areas that the person is held accountable to, staying focused on, and 2 or 3 areas that you can help. So the people plan, I think, is really key. At the end of the day, let's not forget that we live in a people-to-people world, that we can come up with the best plan, but it's our people that execute for us. I want you guys to think about, as I take questions here on this last section, and at this time is also a good time to take any questions, not just from this last section, from anything else that you have as we come to the close of our webcast pretty soon. But as we think about our questions, pick one person you can get just 2 to 3 times more performance than with you helping them. So pick somebody that you think could really help you achieve your plans, and then come up with a plan or make a decision that you're going to spend some time with that person to help coach them.
So Patrick, one question here from Lynn. How often do you implement this? Do you do it monthly? Do you do it quarterly? What's the frequency of implementation?
That's a very good question. I actually like weekly coaching. So you asked me monthly and quarterly, and I'm saying weekly. Now, weekly coaching can be done. What I've found is this: the more frequently you do it, the less scary it is. The shorter the meeting, and the more casual it is. So if you meet me weekly for 10 minutes and just check on me, coach me, hey, back to this example of Sue. If I'm coaching Sue, I'll meet with her weekly and say, hey, Sue, do you need anything at all this week for me on financial analytics? And maybe it's once a month that I've scheduled something to teach you on financial analytics. But by the way, last week I taught you this thing, and this week I just want to check in to see if you need anything. A good question to ask every single week is, are there any obstacles you have in front of you that I can remove for you? Okay, so what I found is that weekly touching base and coaching makes it a few things. First, it's less scary. Secondly, you can help make those adjustments quicker. If you meet monthly or quarterly and the person has stuck on week 1 of the month, you've waited 4 weeks to help that person get unstuck. So you've lost 4 weeks of your quarter already. So I really suggest weekly.
And how do you handle a situation if one person's wearing many hats? How can you help that person? So say they only work for you maybe 20%, and they have other people that they're also working for. How do you help that person?
Well, the first thing I do is I shoot all the other people that she's working for, so I can get her 100%. But if that's not doable, I'm only joking, by the way. I'm only joking. So I do think that, just so you know, I think that a person cannot wear that many hats. So, we're all young, smaller companies, so wearing 3 to 4 hats is fine. But just be careful that that person isn't wearing 7, 8, 9 hats, because an A player wearing 8, 9 hats can always become a C player just because you ran out of bandwidth. So if you're coaching someone that only is 20% for you, I coach within my 20% framework. I would say, okay, so you spend 20% of your time on my stuff. Let's first of all figure out what can actually be achieved in that 20%. I'll then ask that person how they can protect that 20% so that I do get my full 20%. I don't want 15 or 16%, man. I want my full 20%. And by the way, I'm going to show you how much I love you, how much I care about your success, so that you're going to naturally want to give me 30%, 40%. But unfortunately, you can only give me 20%. That's emotionally, I like for us to be in that place where that person feels like, oh my gosh, I love working for you. I mean, why can't I give you 30%, 40%? But at a minimum, I want to make sure that we have staked out the ground properly so that you can give me my 20%. It is great also to ask that person how you can be helpful so that you're not infringing on the other 80%, right? Because in other words, if you're asking that person to give you more, she or he may feel stressed because he or she is failing on the other side. And you don't want that. You want to succeed as a team, win as a team in your company, not have somebody over-optimize for you and then that's poorly on the other side. So I would be very clearly staking out at 20% so that we work within those guidelines.
And here's another question. Now, how many people should a manager ideally coach?
How many? That's a tough one. I think that some people are more, what's the word? Are more able to coach than others. But I've typically found that 6 to 8 is about the max. I even suggest that 3 maybe, because once you start getting beyond 3 or 4 people, you're really eating up a lot of your time. There's only so much you can do. If you're going to coach 3 or 4 people even then, you're going to have to make sure that that's one of your priorities because you want to make sure you've allocated enough time and energy on your schedule to do a good job coaching that person. But by the way, that's a very good question because the last thing you want to do is start to coach a person and not show up. Oh my goodness, right? I mean, how demotivating is that, right? I mean, you've said you want to coach me, I show up and you don't. Wow, that's really bad. So that would be taking a good idea and making it a bad outcome. So yes, so be careful how many you take on. But on this call, without knowing you guys better in your situation, I suggest 1 or 2 people. In fact, that's why I suggested in my slide here, pick just 1 to get started with.
And one more question. Should this coaching plan be used for performance appraisals?
Should the coaching plan be used for performance appraisals? You could. Actually, I have a job scorecard that we use for both hiring and appraisals, and the first 2/3 of this coaching plan is actually from the job scorecard, right? In other words, you got to know the job well, right? And then we can coach them to achieve that. But be very careful not to tie your coaching to the performance appraisal because otherwise it feels like I'm not succeeding, and that's the reason why you're coaching me. Okay. If there are no other questions, let me bring this to an end. But I do want to point out something I mentioned earlier. I want to emphasize it again. Usually people ask me, how do I choose someone to coach? Should I choose an A player, B player, C player, right? And I would always suggest that you coach an A player. I know that sounds strange, but you want to coach your A players because A players have the capacity to give you a whole lot more. And to me, it's kind of like investing in a stock. You kind of want to invest more in your performing stocks and not in the stocks that are failing for you because it's really painful to try and catch a falling knife. So I would highly recommend that because remember my goal here is to get 2 to 3 times more performance. And of course, you should coach the people who are not working out as well. But in this case, I'm trying to get 2 to 3 times more performance. So you have a higher probability of getting more performance from an A player than from a C player. Okay, so what's your December 31st going to look like, right? I want you guys to think hard, get to that happy place, okay? And then I covered 4 things today that hopefully will help you get presents at the end of the year. And the 4 things are this, and sometimes people ask me, gee, Patrick, how do I decide what to do? Well, here's how you decide. First of all, running towards the wrong target is the worst thing possible. If you are at the wrong target, it doesn't matter what you do. If you have lack of clarity on your target, then you have a lot of wasted energy on your team. So if you don't know your target, do the destination postcard. Get clarity on that. If you already have clarity and you say, gee, Patrick, I have clarity, but I don't have a destination postcard, I'd say don't worry about it. You're doing fine. Maybe incorporate the destination postcard in your annual planning next year. But don't worry about it. If you have great clarity, then consider the next 3. Start, stop, keep. I think everyone should at least do a simple start, stop, keep to figure out your adjustments. Because if your plan's not working, you need to know now. You need to make adjustments. If your plan's working great, there may be 1 or 2 adjustments that you can make to accelerate your plan. So don't forget the story I shared with you about the school teacher, right? Where she actually, in springtime did the graduation ceremony and called her kids, second graders. So that was an adjustment that helped accelerate the progress. And then if you got those things done, then you can choose either you want to use a KPI or daily question to help guide you, or if you think that your challenges are with people, then go ahead and focus on how to do that with your people, how to do a coaching plan with your people. Okay, so here are 4 things. Learning is great, but doing is better. So pick something that you can do as of now. And then finally, we have a survey that's going to pop up. Please do me a big favor, wait for the survey. It will pop up after the webcast ends, and and we would love your feedback. We do this, I think, once a quarter, so I want to make sure that I'm capturing your needs. If you have any questions or anything at all that you would like me to cover in the next webcast, let me know, and I will work on that for you. If you need any other things, you can email me. Here's my email, and here's my blog as well. If you want to just get caught up on all these execution tips that I have. So thank you very much, guys, for coming. And Ryan, back to you.
No, thank you, Patrick. This concludes our webcast for today. Thanks so much, Patrick, and to all of you for joining us. And again, please help us by taking about a minute to complete the survey at the end of the webcast, and you'll receive a link to the recording of the webcast when it's available. Again, thank you very much, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.